Hey everyone, my name is Amber. I'm a first year 5th grade teacher and welcome to my channel. So I started teaching 5th grade back in August of 2021. It's currently January, so I'm a little over halfway through my very first year of teaching. It has been an unforgettable year, and looking back to the very first day of school compared to where I am now as a teacher, I have learned so much. So I wanted to create this video to share with you guys the things that I've learned within my very first semester of teaching. So whether you are currently in classes and student teaching in order to become a teacher, whether you're interested in the teaching profession or you're just curious about a teacher's life, I hope that you enjoy these tips and advice. Let's get into it. So the very first thing that I find important that I've learned throughout my first semester of teaching is that you have to surround yourself by people who have confidence in your teaching ability and support you as a teacher. You are deeply influenced by those you surround yourself with in your day-to-day life, whether that be at work, whether that be in your personal life. Anywhere that you go, you're going to be influenced by those around you. So if those people are people who build you up and treat you as the amazing teacher that you are going to be so much more confident. When you feel confident in your own teaching abilities, you showcase that confidence with your students, and it makes everything that you teach come more naturally and come at ease. And a thing that I've had to constantly remind myself throughout this whole year is that I've put my time and my hard work into becoming who I am today. I have put the time into my classes, I have put the hours into student teaching, I have done everything that I need to do to be the teacher that I am today. So just reminding myself of that, like I'm doing what I need to do, that has increased my confidence and made my teaching so much better. So when you surround yourself by coworkers who also treat you as the amazing teacher that you are, it kind of validates that confidence that you have in yourself and brings so much more joy to the work environment. The second piece of advice that I have learned in my first semester of teaching is that you are going to have to quickly sort through what is important and what is not as important. You're going to have so much thrown at you your very first year of teaching that it's going to feel overwhelming at times, but not everything that is thrown at you is stuff that needs to get done right at that moment. It's important to quickly figure out the things that you absolutely need to get done and then figure out the other things that aren't really going to add much to your teaching and just going to add stress onto your plate. So it really helps to have a mentor or a teaching partner that you can go to for advice in this regard. So this year I have had an amazing teaching partner that has really helped me sort out what's really important and what I need to get done and what doesn't matter as much. They've done more teaching than you have in your first year. So you really need to rely on their wisdom of what they have figured out in the past. Utilize that in your first year. Also, don't feel the need to sign up for everything that you are offered your very first year of teaching. There is going to be so many opportunities thrown at you, and most of those are super incredible and you should take advantage of them. However, some of them are just things that you do not need to add onto your plate. You're gonna have enough to do within your first year of teaching, so keeping it simple is super important. My third piece of advice kind of goes along with the second. It's the fact that your to-do list will never end. You are always going to have something added onto your to-do list, and the minute you check something off, you're going to think of something that you want to add on there. You may not get everything that you want to get done in a day, but it's important to realize that there is going to be a tomorrow in time for you to get it done. So don't put the pressure to check everything off of your to-do list at the end of each day, because realistically, there's just not enough hours in the day, and there always will be tomorrow. My fourth piece of advice is a pretty common one across all teachers, and it's the fact that you should really try to set limitations with yourself within your contract hour. Try not to bring work at home with you. And if you have to stay later one day to figure out something, that's fine, but try not to do it every single day. Really try to limit yourself to your contract hours. This year, I have had many days where I have stayed well past my contract hours, and that's sometimes just what you have to do in order to get everything done being a first-year teacher. You're gonna have to create a lot more than veteran teachers have because they can reuse stuff from the past or make little alterations, whereas first year teachers, you're kind of starting from scratch. So I definitely get that that takes a lot more time. So it's not realistic to every day leave within your contract hours, but really try to utilize your planning that morning time before students get there, or even whenever students are like doing independent work. I have times when students are taking a test, and in between them coming up and asking me questions about the test, I'll be sure to grade some papers or do something for the next week. Really try to utilize the time given within your contract hours so that you don't have to stay super late each day, because that's ultimately how teacher burnout happens. I've also found that if I do have to work later or bring something home with me, I really try to make it something that I enjoy doing. I don't necessarily get as much joy out of grading students' papers, believe it or not, but I do get joy out of creating things for my classroom. That's the type of stuff that I'll try to save for outside of school hours and really try to get the other stuff that's not as enjoyable done during school. My fifth tip or piece of advice that I've learned in my first semester of teaching is something that I've kind of come into teaching with, and it's the fact that if your students feel loved and valued in your classroom, that is far more important than the grades that they're making on the tests. The way that I approach this with my fifth graders is that I tell them, look, no one remembers your fifth grade transcript. That's actually something that my teaching partner said to me, and I was like, you know what, you're right. No one is going to remember the grade that you got in science in fifth grade. However, your students are going to remember the impact that you made on their lives as a teacher. They're going to remember the positivity that you gave them, the love that you gave them, and the care that you showed for them, far over what you taught them that one time when you did a magnetism lab in science, or that one time when you divided these two fractions. You know, they are going to get so much more out of their education if they feel welcomed and loved and safe within your classroom. And that's the thing, students learn so much better whenever they do feel loved and cared for and comfortable in the environment that they're learning in. You have to remind your students that education is truly a privilege and that they should be working hard to learn the content. However, the grade that they get is not necessarily what should motivate them and what should stress them out. It shouldn't be about whether they get an A or B on the test. It should be about whether they actually learn the content and whether they're enjoying their learning. The sixth thing that I have learned throughout my first semester of teaching is that classroom management is tough. Let me tell you. Like, I had this classroom management binder that I created in my undergrad that I had all of these procedures written out, and within the first week of school, there are so many things that you are not prepared for and that you just kind of have to go with the flow and on the fly come up with something that works for your students. And that's the other thing. Each classroom management style is not going to work for every set of students that you are teaching. You may have think sheets for one group and that may work really well for them, but for another it may not do as well. You may have teachers versus students or a positive reward system like tickets, and for some students that may be the motivation they need to be on their best behavior, but for others you're going to have to come up with something different. And I think that one main thing that has helped a lot with my classroom management is the relationships that I'm building with kids. The kids are going to want to work so much harder for you whenever they know that you love and care about them and you want what's best for them. One of the sayings that I've always kept in mind is that they don't want to learn from their teacher. They want to learn for them. They are motivated by the pride that you instill in them. If you let them know how proud you are of them and how much you want them to succeed, they are going to work even harder for that. I've also learned, and this is something that I'm going to be instilling in my upcoming years of teaching, that I've gotten slowly stricter with my expectations. So this is something that I've struggled with pretty much all of my student teaching and the beginning of my first year of teaching. So for example, if I have a consequence for the class and I say, you get 3 warnings, if you get to 3 warnings, you're gonna get a think sheet. If I let those students slide through those 3 warnings and it still continues, they're gonna start picking up on that, and they are smart. They know that they will get away with it. You really have to set limitations and expectations and follow through with those limitations and expectations with your students. And I know this can be hard because for me, I thought it was like, I'm being too mean for them. They're not gonna like me because I'm being strict. However, they need those boundaries, and it's only harming them if you don't set those clear boundaries in place and stick with them. The seventh thing that I've learned from my first semester of teaching is that you must prioritize your mental health and your happiness. You cannot pour from an empty glass. You have to make sure that you're keeping time for yourself and doing things that make you happy in school and out of school. One thing that I've done this year, as soon as I get home from school, I do something that's going to bring me joy. So whether that be going out with a friend to have dinner, or going over to see my niece and nephew and my family and having some playtime, or working out whenever I get home, something that's gonna bring me joy and kind of be like a stress reliever is super important. So that brings me to my eighth and final piece of advice that I want to share with you guys today, and that is the fact that teaching is hard. It is stressful, it is overwhelming at times. However, during those times, you need to remember the reason why you decided to become a teacher. For me, I want to be a positive impact and role model and influence on my students. I am teaching for them. I'm not teaching for me. I'm not teaching for my administration. I'm not teaching for their parents. I'm teaching for my students. So I have their best interest in mind. Whenever times get tough and I feel overwhelmed, I have to keep reminding myself that I chose to be in this profession for a reason and that I'm here for a reason, and I am going to do everything in my power to make a positive difference in my students' lives. With that comes a positive mindset. Even saying that to yourself each morning before you go into teaching, especially nowadays when the profession is surrounded by so much negativity because of all the hardship that teachers have to go through, just remind yourself to stay positive for your students because you're doing everything for them. Although I could probably go on and on about everything that I've learned throughout my first semester of teaching, that is the main 8 that I would like to share with you guys today. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope whether you are going through your student teaching, I hope that you continue to push through, persevere, and that you have an amazing career in the field of education. Or if you're interested in education, I hope that this gave you a little bit more insight into what it's like your first year of teaching. Or if you're just curious about the field of teaching, I hope you've enjoyed listening. I hope that everyone has a safe rest of their year in whatever situation that they're in. Be sure to like and subscribe if you'd like, and thank you guys so much for watching. See you in the next video. Bye, friends!